लिख के हमें धमकी दी गई है। मैं इल्जामात नहीं लगा रहा, ये मेरे पास जो खत है ये सबूत है।
जब 27 मार्च इस्लामाबाद के जलसे में कागज का एक टुकड़ा लहराया गया और ड्रामाई अंदाज में एक ऐसा बयानिया देने की कोशिश की गई जिसका हकीकत से दूर दूर तक कोई वास्ता नहीं था। हमसे गलतियां हो सकती मगर हम गद्दार और साजिशी हरगिज़ नहीं हो सकते।
तो आज बेचारा क्या करता, पर्ची जेब से निकाली, खाली पेपर, ये सबूत है। पर किसको बेवकूफ बना रहे हो? को जो गैर मुल्की ताकतें होती है वो सबूत लिख के देती है। अजीब बात है भाई।
ये खत ना था ना है, ये ड्रामा था।
हमें एक अमेरिका ने एक बाहर से मुल्क में नाम
Is the responsibility going on President Biden wanting to change the regime in Pakistan or the secretary? I mean, somebody has to take at least.
I feel like I need to bring just a sign that I can hold up in response to this question to say that allegation is not true. I don't know how many times I can say it.
मैं आज आपके सामने लॉन्ग मार्च का ऐलान कर रहा हूं जुमे को। मैं लीड करूंगा उसको।
You guys have a reaction to the arrest of former Pakistan Prime Minister Khan, and do you think he got a fair trial?
We believe that is an internal matter for Pakistan.
Welcome to GBS Dialogue with Najma and Moeed Pirzada. Moeed, massive development in Pakistan today after the release of the Intercept story on the Cipher. What do you see as its major significance?
Najma, I think it's a bigger story even in the US than the Washington, basically, because this story, not only that the story is a sort of a confirmation of what the former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been saying from March 2022, but for the first time, this Intercept story, because of the American journalist, because it's an American online publication, because the publication has integrity and repute, has compelled the State Department to admit willy-nilly in the question answers that by and large, this is true. They're now saying this thing that, yes, we had a policy difference. We conveyed a policy displeasure. We were not really choosing the leadership in Pakistan. They're trying to basically say that, we were not really selecting the future government, but they made it very clear that we wanted Imran Khan to go because we had policy disagreement and we expressed a displeasure. They're not really denying the content. And I think this is a huge development also because
that's a difference because, throughout the last 16 months almost, they have been at every point denying that any such thing happened. They've said it's, I know the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Pakistan referred to the claims as propaganda, misinformation, disinformation. So on behalf of the fact that the spokesperson for the White House has actually accepted that if certain conversation happened, it was over a policy difference rather than us saying to remove the Democrat leader, is still a big concession from the White House.
It's a big concession. You see, look, White House and State Department, being White House and State Department, had not flatly denied the existence of the conversation. Some of the comments in the previous, because even Donald Lu was called to a Senate hearing where the Maryland senator, I think Senator, I'm forgetting his name, so the point, the conversation did take place, and they were saying that State Department used to say that we don't want to comment, and it's not in the convention for us to comment on a diplomatic communication, so we are not commenting on it, and it didn't really mean what the Pakistanis are trying to say. But on the Pakistani side, almost all the key leaders of the PDM, including Mariam Nawaz, the Defense Minister Khaja Asif, and almost literally everyone started by saying that such conversation never existed. They used to basically say that how could a great power like United States ever communicate such a thing? This is all a figment of imagination. Imran Khan has only been waving a piece of paper in the air, and in all steps and stages, it has proved that Imran Khan was telling the truth, that exactly this communication existed. This communication not only existed, it said more or less the same things. So Imran Khan, now who is sitting virtually in a death cell, has been proved true. And this is a very awkward moment for Washington policymakers. And I hope and I think that a serious debate is going to start in Washington on the issue that what really went wrong.
Imran Khan himself actually backtracked from some of those allegations, right? So why do you think he did that?
Usually what Imran Khan started saying, first of all, I think that Imran Khan came under pressure from the Pakistani American community because there was such a stonewalling reaction from the senators and the members of the House of Representatives, which are often called as congressmen by the Pakistani community. So since there was a reaction from Congress, and people were not really prepared to accept that the United States, the Biden administration, could have played any role in the removal of the Imran Khan government, the Pakistani American community was having a lot of getting a lot of flack, when they met the congressional aides in the Congress, and they impressed upon Imran Khan that he should actually create a distance from the story. So he then started saying that he thinks that perhaps the conspirators were in Pakistan, meaning General Bajwa and the others, and they have somehow or the other used the Cipher against him. And it's not still very clear as to what really happened, in the sense that, there's so many important dimensions to the whole thing. For instance, the operation to remove Imran Khan with the help of General Bajwa and Nawaz Sharif and Asif Ali Zardari, we believe is actually going on for the past several months. So how the US communication finally played a role in it, how do we really fit it, is still a very big question. But there was a definite role, and in the last few weeks after 9th May, the way the State Department has refrained and restrained from commenting on the Pakistani politics, where thousands of people have been arrested, homes have been broken in, men, women have been arrested. At one point, the Punjab government admitted that it had arrested close to 10,000 people. And the way the military courts have been instituted, the Supreme Court of Pakistan had been made dysfunctional, the high courts have been given a shut-up call, the great violation of the human rights. I mean, all these things actually were ignored by the State Department. And now giving a lot of credence to the accusation that Biden administration is really supporting one of the most fascist regimes in the history of Pakistan. So I think things are becoming very clear.
I want you to come back to this because there's an interesting point mentioned within the Cipher discussion. Now, coming to the Intercept story itself and the discussion of the Cipher, they typed out the Cipher. They didn't actually give an actual copy of the Cipher. Why was that? And does that take away from the veracity of the story in any way?
The veracity of the story has actually been admitted by the State Department. State Department hasn't seen, unlike the Pakistani governments and the political parties that would see that we would need to basically see the actual signed document. They haven't really demanded that. They have admitted that this document might have existed. And after all, remember this thing that the Cipher wasn't sent by State Department. The Cipher was sent by Pakistan's ambassador to the United States, Asad Majeed, who subsequently became Pakistan's foreign secretary, which also raises some very interesting questions that if Asad Majeed had really offended General Bajwa and his establishment, why would they have ever allowed him to become the foreign secretary? Because General Bajwa was still around as the main power till the end of November 2022. And Asad Majeed, who has now been replaced by Dr. Cyrus Qazi as the foreign secretary, became the foreign secretary, which also raises the question that what was Asad Majeed himself? What was his role?
But coming back to the Intercept and why they typed out, why did they type out?
Hey, I mean,
what took place in that
question.
Cipher?
I think since there were limited copies of the Cipher, I mean, let me tell you how the Cipher thing, what is called a Cipher is the triple coded diplomatic message that is sent by a safe mechanism from one embassy to the Foreign Office. And it is received simultaneously. The way it works in Pakistan, there is one copy is, so it's basically received by a machine apparatus and equipment that decodes it, turns back into simple language because it goes as a triple cipher coded message. So within Islamabad Foreign Office, it has been received and turned into English language. and a copy has been then goes to the foreign secretary, to the foreign minister, to the prime minister. One copy goes to the army chief. One copy goes to the chairman, joint chief of staff. One copy goes to the chairman, joint chief of staff, and so on. And one copy, of course, goes to the director services, inter-services, intelligence. So since there are so many copies, and they would not like to put a copy because maybe a copy has some marks or some kind of identification.
So many copies, but not so many copies, basically.
So basically, there might actually be 7, 8, 10 copies, but the point is, they put up the copy, it can be identified that which copy is this. And by the way, keep in mind that the Pakistani establishment might actually be ready to file its own second sets of course, maybe 201th case against Imran Khan for violating the new act. I mean, this also, some people
the Official Secrets Act that was just passed.
The Official Secret Act has been passed by 2023 after a lot of debate has been passed by Pakistani Senate and the National Assembly. And maybe they would like to basically test it and file charges that Imran Khan has leaked this document to Intercept, and Imran Khan should
Ryan Grim has clearly said, he said 100%, there's no more percentage than you can get 100%, that this did not come from the PTI and it's come from a military source. And within the Official Secrets Act, the other interesting thing is it will also apply to military people. They're not allowed to whistleblow. So there is a huge risk to the person who staked their own reputation on doing this. And it shows the significance of what this holds for the country.
It's a very tricky question because, of course, it's a very dangerous situation. And Ryan, what is his name? Ryan Grim, right?
Ryan Grim.
I think Ryan Grim, right? He has gone on record with 100% that it's coming from a military source. And of course, the Pakistani military cannot subpoena an Intercept editor or
Murtaza Hussain as well. They're joint authors.
Yeah, joint authors. They both are American citizens. Hussain was also, I've seen his profile. He grew up in the United States, was born over here. He has on the Twitter shared pictures when he was a small young kid or child, literally infant and toddler.
With his father, yes.
With his father in a store. He said, my father raised the money, saved the money from that store to raise me. So the Pakistani establishment...
True immigrant story, which is somewhat undermined in Pakistan when immigrants, when Pakistani diaspora is treated and talked about the way Khwaja Asif did recently as well. But coming back to the actual story.
I want to, before you go into the story, I want to make a comment that will be very useful for the diasporas to understand and for anyone to understand. Look, Najma, I think what people do not realize, and of course the Pakistani establishment has not been able to understand this, but also the State Department, the CIA, the CENTCOM, many think tankers in the United States and US media are not really understanding that the tumultuous time period, the turmoil of the past 16 months has for the first time created a Pakistani American community. The first time the Pakistani American community has appeared on the map of United States. It was an artificial community that was being used and spoon-fed by the Pakistani establishment for its own causes. This community, its money, its resources, its reception rooms, its drawing rooms, dining rooms, its money, its hard-earned money.
Patriotism was used. I really don't want to go down the wrong track, but even today, Shahbaz Sharif tweeted.
Hold on. They were being used for very narrow causes, like, we want spare parts, there is a sanction and a congressional committee. We need spare parts for F-16s. We need military aid. We need some kind of thing to against India or Kashmir. For the first time, this community has started to identify itself with the politics of Pakistan. And I don't think this process is going to stop because they have realized, the situation has compelled them to get into the American politics. From this point onwards, the Pakistani American community is going to find a voice for itself within the American politics. And this is the major thing.
Yep. No, agreed 100%. Now, the Cipher, one of the interesting things about the Cipher is that they explicitly mention in the Intercept story that they haven't shared a copy of it because it has classification markings. And they gave a link to a story about Twitter and where Elon Musk says he'll be able to trace any documentation. And they give a link to that. So that's a very interesting point that just to bring out that this is how the tracking of the person who may have given their story, and they wanted to avoid that. Now, on the Cipher contents itself, you were one of the 10 journalists that was in the meeting held towards the very end of Imran Khan's government, who, when he went through and explained what was in the Cipher, do the contents match your understanding, or is there additional stuff?
Very interesting question. I don't know whether you have seen my Urdu vlog, which I did about 2-3 hours ago. I have given out the details, but since you were busy preparing for your own discussion.
No, because I watch vlogs in the evening just before I go to sleep. So I will watch it, but not yet.
So let me remember, since Imran Khan first mentioned the Cipher and when he waved it, in a Jalsa in Islamabad parade ground on 27 March 2022, this particular meeting took place in the first week of April. Now, remember, Imran Khan's government fell on 9th April, and this meeting took place in the first week of April. I think it was 3rd April or 4th April, and Shahid Arshad Sharif. Shahid Arshad Sharif was there. I met him. We were all. Imran Riaz was there. I mean, look at the iconic figures. Shahid Arshad Sharif was there. Shahid Arshad Sharif, who was murdered and assassinated. I mean, look at the significance of the day. I mean, Arshad was murdered in Kenya. Imran Riaz is now missing for almost 90 days, a missing person after being arrested by police. Kashif Abbasi was there. Sabir Shakir, who's living in exile in UK, was there.
Now living in exile.
Now living in exile. Habib Akram was there. One lady journalist, Fariha Adris, a great friend of yours, she was there. Kashif Abbasi was there. Who else was there?
Habib Akram, did you mention him?
Habib Akram was there.
And amongst the politicians, who were the politicians that were there?
Look, literally a whole cabinet, because Asad Umar had a paper in his hand. He never gave it to anyone else. He never actually literally showed it. I mean, apart from showing it from 20 feet away, 10 feet away, he read out. So Asad Umar was there, who was the planning minister.
So Asad Umar read out from the Cipher word for word. Is that what happened?
That's interesting thing. Before he started to read from it, he said, look, according to the Official Secret Act, only the cabinet ministers can actually see it. It cannot be, it has not been. Subsequently, they were, after a few days, they said we'll declassify it for the media, for fixed media, but they never able to show it to the media, and the government fell.
Although Hamid Mir and Najm Sethi both have claimed that they've got a copy, apparently. I've seen tweets to that effect.
If Hamid Mir and Najm Sethi have got a copy, I don't know how they got a copy, and maybe some kind of sources in the government had showed them a copy. The same government that kept on saying that it simply doesn't exist. But hang on, so come back. So Fawad Chaudhry was there. Of course, the Prime Minister was there. And so many of the cabinet ministers, members were actually there. Now, Asad Umar said that this is a sort of an edited version of it. I'm not going to read it word by word and sentence by sentence. So he would look at a paragraph and then paraphrase it in his own words. And he basically told us more or less the things. So 90% of what he told, the 90% of what we have seen today in the Intercept story was there, except some things. Now, what are the interesting things which were not there? Some of the details were, of course, I mean, it looked like the actual cipher of the Ambassador Asad Majid was far more detailed than what was read out to us was a smaller abridged edition. But when he says that when Asad Umar says, while reading the cipher, that we believe, quoting Donald Lu, that we believe that Prime Minister Imran Khan was responsible for the Russia policy. Now the Intercept story, we find out that the Donald Lu says that as per the briefing by the national security team within United States, that means the team of the National Security Advisor, NSA, Jake Sullivan, we have been briefed that Prime Minister Imran Khan is running this policy. He is responsible for this policy.
Right.
And now the Intercept story also tells us of the possible reaction and displeasure from the Europeans. And this was not there when that was read out to us. I mean, Europe was not mentioned over there in Asad Umar's briefing over there. Now, the interesting thing is, and this is very, very, very interesting from State Department's point of view, who was briefing the national security team within the Biden administration that Imran Khan was responsible for the Russia policy. Imran Khan has been on record many times that, I was only following a policy that was Pakistan's consensus state policy with the military, foreign office, and the whole state apparatus on board. But even if we ignore Imran Khan's statements, we all understand that the Pakistani establishment from 2013-14 was hectically trying to establish a rapport with the Russians. I mean, the Druzhba commando joint exercises that were taking place in Pakistan, in Russia, in Central Asia, along with the Chinese and the Russians, were not, Imran Khan only came to power on 20th August 2018. And the Druzhba exercises that were taking place every year in order to improve the interoperability between the special services commando groups of Russia, Pakistan, China were taking place every year in different parts of the world, right? And, they were hectic efforts. So who has misled the U.S. State Department?
And Ambassador Asad Majid mentions that in the Cipher, he writes that I did tell him that this was not just the government's policy, this was across the country, and it was a joint policy. He does make that point. But Donald Lu does refer to, no, we think this is Imran Khan's personal policy. We think it's the Prime Minister's policy-led initiative. So it's what you're suggesting is the Americans were misled into deliberately being told that this was an Imran Khan policy.
I really, really hope that this matter is taken up by the Senate. I really, really hope that either the Congressional Committee or the Senate Foreign Relations Committee or the Congress or the House Committee really takes up this issue. That who misled them? So that
who were the conversations happening with? I mean, this is very easy for the Americans to tell. They will know who they were having conversations with. Because one interesting point that came out of that cipher for me was that the foreign minister, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, tried to call Anthony Blinken, who wasn't taking any calls, to actually...
Hang on. Just stop for this question, because this is the second important point, and this really needs to be expanded. The first important point is that the Senate and the House, either the Foreign Relations Committee of the House or the Senate, needs to subpoena the national security team, the NSS team, Jake Sullivan's team, to find out that who was briefing them that Imran Khan is personally running the Russia show. Imran Khan had nothing to do with the Russia show. It was purely a Pakistani state agenda that was actually, going on. In fact, let me tell you something more interesting. That when Imran Khan was actually I think on 22nd of February, just one day before Imran Khan was actually about to fly to Moscow, he had a large meeting, sort of a consultative meeting in the Prime Minister's large room, Prime Minister office, which is called PMO in the building. And I was among the 3 journalists, because, only 3 journalists were invited there. I think it was me. I think
Imtiaz Gul, I think you mentioned.
Yeah. The point is this, that there were 2 meetings took place, in the same February month, and I don't want to confuse the people, because in one of the meeting, Imtiaz Gul was there, in one of the meeting, Naseem Zara was there, so I don't know which meeting was which meeting, but I was part of both the meetings. They were not part of both the meetings. So on this meeting, Imran Khan had invited Pakistan's foreign secretary and the whole important people of Pakistan's foreign office, DGs and the others were sitting over there. I think one of the ex-foreign secretary or 2 ex-foreign secretaries were there. All the ex-ambassadors to Russia were there. Some of the Russia experts were there. And then some of the key people of the Islamabad think tank community, ambassadors, writers, think tankers were also sitting, right? And his whole cabinet was sitting. And Imran Khan was not talking, he was just listening. He only asked the questions and then he let everybody speak. And he said, look, this is the situation. We're going on more than one occasion, 2 or 3 times. He basically told his participants that I'm worried, I'm afraid that there might actually be a war. This is on 22nd of February 2022. He says there might actually be a war, right? No one, the foreign office people, the foreign secretary, the ex-foreign secretary, the think tankers, the ex-ambassadors, the experts, no one said you should not go because of the war. None of these gentlemen had the slightest understanding. I mean, it's sincerely speaking.
What about the Foreign Office? I mean, was there that understanding in the Foreign Office? For example, our ambassadors in Germany, France, Austria, wherever, all over Europe.
I can only testify to what I saw and what I heard. Not a word. Imran Khan, at least 3 times, put this question in front that I'm worried. He expressed that there might actually be a war. We are going at a very difficult time. So he asked everybody's feedback. And no one took this seriously. The point is why they didn't take it seriously. I didn't understand at that time. Subsequently, when all this, disaster took place in Pakistan, I started reflecting, after the next few days. And once I saw the reaction from the Europe, once I saw the reaction from the US, I got to understand this thing that Pakistan Foreign Office and military had no understanding of the deep feelings of the Europeans and the Germany and in France and in UK and in Nordic countries as to how they basically see a potential Ukraine conflict and how much are they afraid of Russia, how many times, there have been conflicts in the last 300 years between Russia and the Western Europe, and how all these people are very worried. So there was absolutely zero understanding of the European sensitivity, and no one actually mentioned this thing. In fact, what they were worried was that, if we didn't go at this stage, everyone basically said that we have to go because in 1951, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali Khan, had got an invitation. We actually missed it. He actually went to Washington. Russians were very unhappy. Then we had the U-2 affair when we used to fly spy planes from the Bada Bear, air base close to Peshawar. Russia and Soviet Union were upset. And then we have fought and supported, an American-led war in Afghanistan against them. So this is the time, and Mr. Prime Minister, you are the first Prime Minister in the last 24 years after Nawaz Sharif that has gone to Russia. The point is, that's why they say, the point is this, that everyone said, Imran Khan, that you have to go and, because...
So the question is, who was telling the Americans it was the Prime Minister's exclusive policy in essence, right?
Who was it?
That's the question.
This the Senate can determine.
This needs to be determined.
The House Committee on Foreign Relations or the Senate Committee on the Foreign Relations need to subpoena the State Department and need to subpoena the internal security, you call the National Security team, NSA's team, Jake Sullivan's team, to basically find out that who from Islamabad or Pindi were telling them that this is Imran Khan running the show.
Right. So the other thing I want you to bring...
You had a second point. point. What was the second point?
I can't remember the second point.
No. There was the other thing.
Shah Mahmood Qureshi is on my mind.
Yes. Shah
Mahmood Qureshi tried his best calling Anthony Blinken. And according to the Cipher, Anthony Blinken was not really taking his calls. And of course, Shah Mahmood Qureshi was trying to explain the Pakistan position on Ukraine. And what I found very interesting, and that Donald Lu said, the thinking in Washington was, given the current political turmoil in Pakistan, this was not the right time for such engagement. And I found that fascinating. Because the last 1 year, we've seen gassing, we've seen people killed, we've seen people abused, we've seen former Prime Minister now in jail. Anthony Blinken has met our foreign minister, he's called our foreign minister, and he's tweeted for our foreign minister as well. What's the difference? Does he not see the political turmoil that's happening right now in Pakistan? What was the turmoil happening in Pakistan in December, January, February, March of 2022? Which was greater than what we're seeing what happened in the last 12 months.
If you remember, what is the name of the Maryland senator who was born in Pakistan?
I didn't go to the meeting, so I can't say.
Hold on. So the point is, in the Senate meeting, which they called Donald Lu, to which you're referring, that Donald Lu basically said that I didn't consider it important. I thought it was not wise to basically talk to the people. There needs to be a second Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting now, once again, on the issue. You know why? The United States only had perhaps a Charge D affair in Islamabad at that time. They didn't have Ambassador Bloom.
And has had for several years, to be honest.
2-3 years, they didn't have an ambassador since the Donald Trump time, right? Ukraine crisis was unfolding. Europe was worried. United States was worried. Biden administration, it's really a big question on the competence and the foreign policy handling of the Biden administration. If the Democrats are not prepared to call a Senate meeting, maybe the Republicans should call a Senate meeting to check this thing, the competence of Biden administration on foreign policy. They had a huge European cross-Atlantic crisis building up. They didn't want Pakistan's prime minister to go to Moscow to give legitimacy. They had no meaningful communication with the prime minister or the foreign minister of Pakistan. So much so, they only had a funny position of a Charge D affair. And the Charge D affair basically tells the Pakistan Foreign Office, and this is precisely what Ambassador Asad Majid says to Donald Lu, that you're taking us for granted. You're treating us with utmost contempt. You see, at no point the Secretary Blinken decides to take up the call and says, I need to talk to the Pakistan's prime minister or the foreign officer, 10 days before this, and saying that, look, we are allies. It's a huge moment. You should
We need your help. The way we heard, for example, Colin Powell did in 2000.
No one from the European Union does that. No one from Britain does that, right? And they just expect Pakistan to understand the European sensitivities. And then the European Union ambassadors did the utmost funny thing.
Issued a public letter.
A public letter, embarrassing the prime minister.
For Pakistan.
Yes. So the point is this is a huge foreign policy failure on the part of the Blinken team and on the part of the Biden administration. And
Which is why you saw the strong reaction from Imran Khan then afterwards saying, we are not slaves. Because, of course, when someone treats you in that fashion, you are naturally going to say something. But
one point I must add, when the European ambassadors did the same funny thing, which was against the diplomatic protocol and convention in Turkey, the Erdogan said that they should be declared persona non grata and kicked out. And then within 1 hour, they basically offered their apologies. Within Pakistan, they treated the Pakistani prime minister and the country with such contempt that they basically opened an open letter, and then they basically treated him as a criminal.
Okay, but where do we now go with this? The story is out. To some extent, the US White House have accepted that they had said something or the other. Of course, they expressed policy concerns rather than you need to get rid of Imran Khan. Although Donald Lu clearly says that, Pakistan is probably going to be isolated from the USA and Europe if Imran Khan stays as prime minister, and not so if he doesn't stay. But putting that aside, where do we go from now? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here from the US perspective and Pakistan perspective?
You see, first, while there has been some mysterious tension and misunderstanding between the Biden administration and Imran Khan government from the very beginning, that the Biden administration that took hold on 20th January 2021 never allowed the Prime Minister Imran Khan to make a call to congratulate President Biden. While the Prime Minister of Pakistan kept trying to call Biden to congratulate him for becoming US President, he was never allowed to speak to President Biden. And despite the fact that when Donald Trump was actually the president, he used to speak with the Pakistani Prime Minister, so things were not bad between Washington and Islamabad. So what were the reasons that the Biden administration decided to shun Imran Khan and treat him as not acceptable from January 2021 is not clear. But we're not going to it because it's become a very big subject. Mm-hmm. Coming to it, I think nothing will happen and the matter will die if the Pakistani American diaspora is not able to grasp the moment and to understand its significance in the form of the Intercept story and the fact that it has put State Department on really defensive in a very awkward moment. They really need to mull over it, to think over it. They have been trying to lobby and raise the voice for the past 15 months. They have achieved a lot of milestones, but they really need to achieve something big. Right now, the biggest trophy they can get is to create such questions and such pressure within Washington that Washington should be able to secure the release of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has been locked into a death cell. And no one, the only place from where the relief can come is Washington. And then secondary support can come from London and Brussels. And these are the three power centers from where the support can come. So now this is the time. It is not just the time to demonstrate on the streets. It's a time to rethink the strategy and to find some powerful senators or the members of the House who are close to the Secretary of State, who are close to Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, or to the President Biden, and to basically raise the question that what are we really punishing the former Prime Minister Imran Khan for what? I mean, why this man who has no credible case against him finds himself locked in a death sentence, and how it is also important to realize at this point that Imran Khan at this moment is the most popular leader in the entire history of Pakistan. And this, few weeks ago, I would have said that he's only the second most, or he's as popular as one point Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was in 1970.
You're excluding, obviously, Qaid-e-Azam from this particular poll.
I'm saying after the creation of Pakistan, after 75. Of course, the Qaid-e-Azam was, but Qaid-e-Azam was the founder of the nation. You're not comparing anyone with him. So after the creation of Pakistan, Imran Khan now is the most popular leader in the history of Pakistan. And not only this, he is one of the, he is among the most popular living politicians in the entire world, with something like 80% plus approval rating. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has about 77% or 76% approval rating. President Biden probably has only 40% approval rating within the United States. Why has United States, allowed a fascist regime in Pakistan to lock up this popular leader? And what are the long-term implications? What kind of political order these jokers will resurrect in Pakistan by denying the largest political party its share in the politics and the elections? I think this is a moment to really hard reflection. It's not going to happen unless the Pakistani community organizes itself.
Yes, we thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. There was another issue which I really wanted us to discuss today, which is what a Wall Street Journal breaking story on the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. But of course, the Intercept story came. So inshallah, next couple of days, we will discuss that particular topic.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.